Exercise 2. In this exercise, we're going to take a look at the functionality in CREO Parametric 3.0 with Revolve features. Now, Revolve features are one of the primary modeling methods. Some people call it the lathe approach. But basically, as you can see here in the book, which is available at vertandi1.com, you'll see here that the actual profile and centerline are the two main ingredients that are required to create a Revolve feature. There's some suggestions inside the book, as I put the good, the bad, wasted time, and good. You'll notice that the axis of revolution, or the center line that as we see there, basically needs to be on the edge or outside of the actual profile that you plan on revolving. Our goal here today is to take a look and create this wheel that you see here. So there's going to be some sketching techniques involved that you'll pick up on here. It's a rather easy exercise. The trick here is actually the actual sketches. So let's begin. Start with a new part file and go ahead and name this E2 for exercise 2. You could go right to sketch and select the front plane. You could select it from the feature tree or right here, and over here hit the little sketch button. It should automatically orient yourself. If it's not, you might want to watch E1 or exercise 1 Parametric 3.0 because it goes through how to set that up to where it automatically orients normal to the screen. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and select the centerline tool. And I'm going to draw a vertical centerline and a horizontal centerline off of the origin. I'm just clicking at the origin, dragging, and then clicking again to get a horizontal, and clicking at the center, dragging it up vertical. Okay, and you can middle click one time to just release that tool if you like. Middle click, that's the middle mouse button, or the scroll, just click on it. Okay, now we're going to take the line tool here. And what I would suggest is first draw a vertical line just slightly off center and middle click a couple times. Now you'll see CREO has that scale feature. We were zoomed out very far. So what we have the ability to do here to rectify that pretty quickly, if we go back to the book and look at the height, it's roughly going to be around 1 inch. We don't have that exact height over there, but we could go ahead and type in 1, hit enter, and it will rescale our shape. So we're actually looking at it closer up. And here we could also see we're going to put a distance of 0.38. It's actually 0.375, but CREO rounds it off, which is fine. So this dimension here, just double click on and type in 0.375, and it will round it to 0.38. But inside the software, it actually knows it's 0.375. So if you were to export this to a CAM software, for example, it's going to be with that accuracy, the 3 decimal place precision or beyond. Okay, now what you might want to do here, you'll notice that that 1 inch dimension we added is strong currently. Strong dimensions are locked in. We don't want it strong. We want to turn it back to weak. So one way you could do this, you just click on it once just to select it. Don't double click. And then hit the delete key on your keyboard. You'll see it will change color, and now if we move over it, it will indicate that in parentheses that it's weak. And thus, if we put additional dimensions in, which we're going to do, eventually that one's going to disappear because we don't really need it. Okay, let's take the line tool now again and glide up to this little spot up here on the vertex of that line we just drew. Click and drag a short little line. Make sure you get the little H. The H indicates it's horizontal. Click, drag this down. Now we want to drag this down at a slight angle. Let's just eyeball it for right now. And don't get too close to the horizontal line. You want to be slightly above it like I am right here. Click, and you could zoom out with the scroll if you like. Zoom in and out to kind of point where you want to go. And then drag off a horizontal line. Again, not too long, not too short. One thing you want to avoid is the L. Stay away from the L right above the H. That indicates equal length. You'll see it's tying into the vertical line in this case. So just make sure you see the H. Click, drag up a vertical line, and make sure you don't get another L. Those L's can be good, but in this case we don't want them. Okay, so again, a vertical line, click, drag across a short little horizontal line, click, drag it down and connect it. Make sure there's a little V. Connect it to the center line, that's horizontal, and middle click after you've connected it. Now I'm going to turn off some of my display options here. I don't necessarily want to see all the planes. It's some people like it. I just prefer not to. Okay, so from here, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to mirror this across the center line. Notice there's no dimensions, but watch this. Middle click 2 times, and you'll see the dimensions will all appear. Okay, many of them are weak for the most part. All right, we want to mirror this across that center line. So here's what you want to do. Go ahead and click and drag a fence to surround the geometry you want to mirror. So in this case, all those green lines that we have there. So just surround them and release it. Now go to the mirror tool and select the center line that you want to mirror across. In this case, the horizontal center line that's at the bottom here. And you'll see it will automatically flip over. You can zoom out if you like. You'll notice here there's a zoom to fit or refit. That might be helpful to some of you. Okay, and now you'll also see the profile. One way you know it's watertight, in other words, there's no openings or gaps or additional lines, is that we get the actual orange shaded area inside there, and that's good. That's what you want. If you don't have that, look around. You might see you have a little gap. Like look at these little dots. You might see there's a little opening somewhere. Make sure you trim those lines up. Can't have any openings because it'll cause problems later on. All right, so some of these dimensions that we want to start modifying, some of them we don't want, others we do want. Like for example, this one, this height, change that to 2 inches. This one down here, if you have that one at the top or the bottom, it doesn't really matter. That should be 0.25. And then this one right here, if you have it at the top or the bottom, again, yours might vary slightly. Just this should be 0.4. And if yours turns out a little bit flaky, it doesn't look quite right, once we start adding some dimensions, it should start to look better. But remember, you could always grab these lines and you could drag them and readjust it to make it look a little bit like mine. So if it's like inverted like this, just grab that little line and drag it over. Maybe grab this line, drag this over. Be aware that the way I have mine set up, it will automatically change these dimensions as I move them. But anyway, okay, so let's continue on here. The next thing, we want to make sure we go to the normal dimension tool. So click on normal. And some of the things we need to add an angled dimension between this line and this one right here. If we just take a look at the book, I'm on page 27, we could see I have it both in dark as well as light. It looks like it's 18 degrees. So let's go back there, click on this line here. Click right in the middle of it. Don't select the ends when you're trying to add an angular dimension. It could cause trouble. Select this vertical line here. And then between the two, move your pointer between the two first, and then middle click. And then you should get your dimension to appear. Go ahead and type in 18 degrees. Now if your angle is already inverted, be aware that that's not what you want to do. So you might want to hit undo up here, and then drag this around to make sure that the angle is coming out from the bottom left. Okay. So there we have one dimension. Let's go ahead, go back to, we're still in normal. So let's add a dimension between this line and this line. And just middle click over here. And that's supposed to be 0.25. Okay. Some additional dimensions that we might be missing. Let's take a look here. The 2.5 inch dimension, and there's a 1 inch dimension from the corner of the angled line to the center line. So let's put that in. So from here, click on this point. Now I do want you to click on the point. And then select the vertical center line. A lot of people make the mistake of selecting this line. Try and avoid that. Look at the center line and click on the center line. And then middle click. Just so you get the right dimension in. That should be 1. Okay, and finally, the last dimension I believe we need here is going to be the 2.5 inch dimension from the center line to this line right here. So select this line, the furthest extent of your wheel, and then the center line. And in theory, this line would be a radius because this is going to revolve 360 degrees. So 2.5. Okay. Now, when I still have some unfinished dimensions here, like this, I have a 2-inch dimension that doesn't belong. That means I'm missing something. And sure enough, one of my dimensions disappeared. And so that was the 0.375. So let's add that. Click here and here, and the middle click right here, 0.375. And that might have happened when I dragged the lines because I have mine set to override dimensions on drag. And that's in the options menu, which you'll find under File and Options. Okay, also, we covered that in the exercise 1. So again, you could go back to exercise 1 and take a look at some of those features, or where to find those. All right, so here we are. We're fully defined. We're in good shape. Let's go ahead and hit OK. And now, this might be where it's tricky. I've had several people mention when they try and revolve in the earlier version, they have an issue. If it doesn't go to revolve automatically like mine just did, go up here, make sure you click on and turn on your CSYS display. And you may need to select the Y-axis that's right in there. Again, the Y-axis. If you click on that while you're in the revolve, that usually will correct the issue. But it should automatically, in this case, just like mine, do this. But again, I've seen some of the users on the bulletin boards there asking, like, why is it not updating? So just be aware that might be an issue for you. Okay, we wanted to go 360 degrees. Be aware you could make it less than that. Okay, there's 90. You could type in an explicit value, 180, and we could just type in 360 for the full round. Hit the green check. Okay, and so you could see we have our tool here. I'm going to turn off my CSYS. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some secondary features. Now, secondary features, when I first created this lesson, it wasn't my intent to put this in, but I put these in just to give you a little bit of a heads up what's coming up in the next lesson. The E3 is really supposed to be more focused on this, but this gives you a little bit. Let's go around, and in this case, the book indicates we want rounds of 0.1. So go ahead and type in 0.1, and you can select this edge here and this edge here, the one at the bottom and the one there, and hit the green check. You could go back to round, actually. Wasn't quite done there yet. You could click on, let's give this one a look, and select that edge. You'll see that there's a little grab handles, and we looked at this on E1 a little bit too. But just as a review, look at that. You could drag it out, and there's your value. You could double click on it, type in an explicit value, whatever you like. It's great for concept work. Hit the green check mark. And we'll put in a couple more, actually. Let's go stick with the 0.1 over here. Maybe a little bit bigger. 0.38. Just have a little fun with it. You don't have to make it exactly like mine. And finally, a little review on the chamfer. Click on chamfer, and you could go ahead and select this edge here and this one over here. Now, what I'm going to do, which isn't in the book, I want to go through the Rib Tool. Rib Tool is very nice. It's in the advanced class typically, but I find that students who finish this class can actually be using it near the end with some of the actual models that the drawings I provide. So I just want to go through this briefly, and I'm just going to select this face to start a sketch. So I went to the sketch tool, select this, and let's say we want to put in some structural ribs. You could go in, and in this case we're going to go ahead here. Actually, let me put in a center line here and here. And then go to the line tool and add a short little line here. Now, we don't need to add them all in. You could if you want, or you can make a pattern from that. Pattern's an additional feature, but which we're not going to cover in this until a couple weeks. So Anyways, you could just draw some lines in there. Notice line segments, they're not going all the way across, and they are flush with that surface. So from there, now I could go to OK. Let's go to the rib tool. And you'll see it will take those little lines that I drew and generate some ribs. Now, you could taper the ribs. Here you could add draft. You could put a full round over the top, which is really cool. You could even put rounds at the bottom. This is probably one of the strongest rib tools that I've seen out there. It's very, very impressive. And you'll see that you could go to the shape and you could adjust these radiuses and things like that. You can fiddle around with it well you like. And I'm going to go ahead and just hit, oh, actually, let's see here. Let's increase the taper. We'll make it 3. The green check. And there it is. All right. Again, we learn how to mirror in the next couple lessons. I don't know if I necessarily want to go over it right now, but you could mirror those features over to the other side or just add them again. Oh, what the heck, I'll go through the mirror tool. Okay, you could select the rib. Let's see if this works. I have not done this before with this particular model, so let's see if it's how it handles the rib, mirroring a rib, because ribs are kind of interesting little features. I know in other softwares they do some weird things when you try and mirror them. Let's see what CREO does here. So I went ahead and I selected it. Go to the mirror tool. We should be able to select, I believe it's our top plane. Yeah, our top plane, which runs right to the center. And let's see what it does here. Yeah, it worked. Beautiful. Okay. So there you have a wheel. Okay. With some ribs too in it. Rib tool is phenomenal. I love it. Okay, the next thing we want to take a look at here. Lab 2. Again, if you're going to do the labs, I really suggest this with my students. Please, please, please try and do them on your own. Don't just use the drawings. I know the drawings aren't the greatest, but use the drawings to the best of your abilities. Try and get them done without watching my video. So you might want to pause it. But I understand some of you have time deadlines, and so you might want to just watch the video quick and figure out, just get some skills from watching it. But your strongest suit is to actually do them on your own. Okay, so I'm going to go File, New, and this one's going to be L2. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select the front plane. I'm going to go right to Revolve, in fact. Okay, I'm going to go to draw my center line, and I'm going to draw couple little lines here, again to scale it to the proper size. Now in this case we get our diameter, which is really cool. We're going to go and take a look because it's given to you in a diameter in the book, a 1/2 inch diameter for that post. So we can type in 0.5, and then over here that length of the shaft is 1.7. Okay, now we're to scale, which is very nice. We could go to the line tool, finish off a little bit more here, drag off a little horizontal line, drag up a little line there, click, middle click I should say. Go to the arc tool. Now you could do several different ways. Center and ends works kind of nice here. You could just click on the center, click here, drag it up, middle click. Now what we can do, we got our diameter here, the head of the bolt, according to the book, is 1 inch in diameter. Now if you don't have that little line going clear across the center line, you might be working on an earlier version. Might have done it differently. You might have actually a radius, so be aware if you see the dimension ending at the center line and it's between here, this extension line. You're working with a radius, so you have to put in 0.5, not 1 inch. But in this case, we're in good shape. All right, now the next thing here, this is supposed to be 1 inch, or I should say 0.1. And let's see, I think I have that as 0.75. And then take a line and connect those. I probably could have done this earlier just to give the watertight boundary condition. And in that case, this doesn't come out perfect. Be aware of that 0.75. When I drew it up, I think I actually made the height of the bolt differently, or actually once I made the cutout, it comes out kind of weird at the top, because actually you're not getting the true height of the bolt. Thus, we could still make a generalization. 2 inch is the height of the bolt. So if we went to the normal dimension tool, we should be able to dimension this right here and make it 2. You see it's 1.99, but if we make it 2, we do not need the radius then. It automatically assumes that radius. Okay, so don't bother putting it in. But again, with these dimensions, you could lay them out a little bit better. Hit OK, and there, pretty much done. Okay, now we need to put in, chamfer is really easy. Just select chamfer. We'll do angle to distance and 0.03 according to the book, and 45 degrees. Select the edge. There we go. That was easy enough. Now the cutout here is not as easy, but it's still pretty easy. Let's select the front plane and start a sketch. Okay, you're going to actually draw the cutout in here. So go to the center line first, add a center line, because we will use the mirror tool here. Zoom up to that head and go to the line tool, drag out line like that, and then close the top. Okay, don't close the center though. This is where we will mirror. Notice I didn't mirror that revolve feature down below, so don't do that. I see my students do that all the time. It's like, it's a waste of time. You don't need to mirror it. Just revolve it. This though, you do need to mirror. So let's go ahead and select that. Go to the mirror tool, select the vertical center line. It should mirror right across. Now we could plug in the dimensions. In this case, this is supposed to be 0.1 for the width. The height doesn't really matter as long as it pierces the top. That's all I care about. In theory, you could lock it down with the dimension over the top or to the point there or something, whatever you want to do, but you don't really need to in this case. But we do need to add a couple dimensions, like one from here to the bottom of the head of the bolt, and that's going to be 0.15. Let me just verify that dimension. Yep, 0.15. Okay, now we could, oh, we have to put the angle in. And the angle is 30 degrees, so once you have it dimensioned, it should be done. So 30 degrees between those two lines. Notice I did not select the endpoints. Don't select the endpoints for angles, as we learned earlier. Select the middle of the lines. Okay, now this 0.2 doesn't really make a difference right now, so we're okay. Let's just go ahead and hit OK and rotate it just a little bit so you can see what's happening. When you go to extrude, you'll see it will extrude on one side. Now make sure you select remove material, but here you could select both directions. Okay, now if you select both directions, be aware you probably have to drag it out further. Okay, so it doesn't stop short. Go ahead and hit the green check, and our bolt is complete. So that's L2. Now in the book we have the quiz 1, which we could go through right now. I'm going to go to File, New, and name this Q1. Hit OK. All right, in this case, I'm going to select the top plane and go right to Extrude. A great tool here to use, because it's centered, is the center rectangle. Click right at the center, drag out your rectangle, make sure it's not square. You don't want any of those. See those little upside down T's? Those are perpendicular symbols. It's indicating that they're locking in. You don't want that. So just make it long like that. And it's going to be 3 by 6, I think. Let me double check that. Yeah, 3 by 6. And then it gets extruded 1 inch. So we can hit OK. And we'll put in 1 and hit the green check mark. Now, I could have put the holes in, and I probably should have put the holes in. That's easy enough to do. We could go back and right click on the extrude. You'll see that there's edit dimensions. Okay. Edit the definition of the selected object or the references. Let's go to edit the dimensions. In this case, let's go to the top view orientation. Okay, actually hit the little arrow right here to the left of the extrude one in the feature tree. Just right click on that and let's see if we could edit the definition here. There we go. That's some of the things that they've changed in version 2 versus version 3. It's a little bit more visual to work with there. You always had the ability to edit these, but they used to call it like edit definition or edit sketch. So in this case, we're going to go to center point. Just click and drop them there. Be careful not to lock it in T. T stands for tangent. Do that and you're going to mess it up. Stay away from the T. And go ahead and drag this up. Double click 0.75 for the distance away. Drag this over. 0.75 again for the distance. And this is going to be 0.5 for the diameter of the hole. Now we want to mirror that across. We can mirror it across as a feature, or we can mirror it across right now. Because we have the 2 center lines that we have drawn. I'm pretty sure I drew in center lines. Let me just double check. Oh, maybe I didn't. Okay. All right, now that I have the center lines, I could select what I want to mirror. Go to the mirror tool, select the center line I want to mirror across. Do the same thing again. Click and drag a fence to surround both of those circles. Go to mirror, select the horizontal center line, should mirror it across. Hit OK. So without adding a new sketch or a new feature, we integrated it into that existing feature just by editing it. So be aware you could do that too. That's not always the best thing to do, but in this case, it actually spares us an extra feature on the tree. The more features you have in the tree, the slower the model will update. So it's more efficient modeling to add it in one feature if you can. Okay, now let's go to the round tool. And the rounds on the edges need to be 0.25. And select the 4 edges. Add the fillets first. I repeat that, add the fillets, or as they call it, rounds first. These are fillets, and other CAD systems call fillets. They're rounds. Add those first, because then when you go to the chamfer, you'll see that there's a chamfer that belongs on this edge, or 0.125 by 45 degree chamfer. If you add the chamfer first, it comes out kind of strange. So add the chamfer after the fillets. And what was that again? 0.125 at 45. Just select one of the edges there. It should propagate around. Hit the green check mark. Notice I didn't draw the big hole. It's just going to be easier to add it as one shot versus 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to extrude, select this face. Not going to add the hole just yet. Going to add a boss. So I'm going to go to the circle tool, lock right into the center of the circle. Double click, or middle click, I should say. And that needs to be, let's double check that diameter, 2.25. And then hit OK. And the height needs to be, I know it's kind of hard to read this print, 0.75. Hit the green check. Okay, we could go ahead and add one more round here. We could have added the rounds after this too. We didn't have to put them in when we did, but that's all right. This added an additional feature, which is not necessarily the best option, but depending upon design intent, might be the one that you want. Okay, I'm going to select this face now, go to extrude, and we'll finish up with the hole. So draw the center there. And then the diameter is 0.125 through. Or I'm sorry, 1.25 through. Hit OK. You could hit that little arrow to flip it. And over here, you select the options. There's extrude through all, basically. They call it intersect with all surfaces. Same thing. Hit the green check. And there is the quiz. That's complete. There's nothing on the back. Now, if you want to have a little fun, I wouldn't recommend doing this for the quiz, but just be aware. Go to the shell. You could go ahead and select the backside face. Let's make that 0.06. Oh, interesting. Doesn't like that. You'll see sometimes these types of issues occur, and basically it might be it's just too complex for it. Most likely what I'm seeing, there's an intersection here. There are tools that help you identify this, but it might be somewhere usually where a fillet is intersecting something, and when it tries to thin it out like that with a thin wall, you run into some issues. So remember, you could always go through, I don't know if you saw what I did, but basically I hit the little play button again here, typed in a new value, 0.03, hit the green check mark. In real life, sometimes you're stuck because shells just don't always work. Sometimes the geometry is just too complex for it to handle. Sometimes you're stuck actually modeling the cutout of the shell. But there's all types of tricks like that. In more of the videos, you'll see a few more little tricks, but basically just be aware sometimes shells just don't work. And you have to go in and find ways to cut that and chisel that material out as if it were shelled. And that concludes exercise 2.